The morning air was crisp as Hae-jin stood across the street from Seoul's Grand Cathedral, her hands gripping the iron fence that separated her from the wedding ceremony inside. She watched as guests filed into the church, their excited chatter carrying across the courtyard. Through the large stained glass windows, she could make out the silhouette of her twin sister, Soo-jin, being helped into her wedding dress by their mother. And if you want a handsome CEO in your life and love videos like this, subscribe to our channel to have 10 years of luck in your life. The bride was marrying Min-ho, Hae-jin's ex-husband of 3 years. Just 8 months ago, he had been sharing breakfast with Hae-jin in their apartment, discussing renovation plans and their future together. Now he was inside that church, preparing to marry her identical twin sister. Hae-jin hadn't received an invitation to the wedding. Her presence here was a form of self-torture, but she couldn't stay away. She needed to see it with her own eyes, to make it real. The betrayal had seemed like a nightmare at first, the kind you wake up from with relief. But there was no waking up from this. As the wedding march began to play, Hae-jin retreated to her car. Her hands shook as she inserted the key into the ignition. The drive home was mechanical, muscle memory guiding her through Seoul's busy streets while her mind replayed memories like a broken film reel. At her apartment, Hae-jin walked past the boxes of antiquities she'd collected over the years. Her passion for vintage items had once filled her with joy, each piece telling its own story. Now they served as painful reminders. The Art Deco lamp Min-ho had helped her restore sat untouched in the corner. The vintage vanity mirror they'd found at a flea market in Insadong still bore the small chip from when they'd moved it into their first apartment together. She picked up a delicate porcelain teacup, part of a set she'd bought during their honeymoon in Prague. The fine china felt cold against her skin. With deliberate movements, she placed it back on the shelf, resisting the urge to shatter it against the wall. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, despite being filled with objects. Across the city, in the gleaming offices of Seoul's business district, Jun-suk sat at his desk, scanning through a fashion magazine. His assistant had placed it on his desk that morning, knowing his interest in emerging designers. A small article caught his attention, a feature on up-and-coming talents in Seoul's fashion scene. There, in a corner of page 37, was a photo of Hae-jin from 2 years ago, standing proudly next to her first collection of modernized hanbok designs. The article mentioned her recent withdrawal from the fashion scene following personal difficulties. Jun-suk studied her photo, the confident smile, the innovative designs that blended traditional Korean elements with contemporary aesthetics. Something about her story intrigued him. As CEO of one of Korea's fastest-growing fashion enterprises, he had an eye for talent. But there was something more here, a sense of untapped potential, of creativity stifled by circumstance. He set down the magazine and pulled up his laptop, searching for more information about Hae-jin. Articles from the previous year detailed her promising career, her unique vision for Korean fashion, and then nothing. She had disappeared from the industry almost completely, coinciding with her divorce and her sister's engagement to her ex-husband. The story struck a chord with Jun-suk. He recognized the look in her eyes from the magazine photo. It was the same determination he'd seen in himself years ago, when he was fighting to establish his company against all odds. He made a decision then, reaching for his phone to contact his assistant. "Find out where Hae-jin works now," he instructed. "I think we might have an opportunity here." His assistant's efficiency was remarkable. In an hour, she returned with the information. Hae-jin had taken a job at a small cafe in Gangnam, apparently trading her design career for the simple routine of serving coffee. Jun-suk looked out his office window at the Seoul skyline, contemplating his next move. He believed in taking calculated risks, and something told him this could be more than just a business opportunity. The Belle Rose Cafe sat tucked between modern office buildings, its vintage aesthetic making it stand out among the steel and glass structures. Jun-suk arrived during the afternoon lull, choosing a corner table that offered a clear view of the counter. He ordered an Americano he didn't intend to drink, his attention focused on the woman working behind the counter. Hae-jin sat at the far end of the cafe during her break, bent over a sketchbook. Her pencil moved across the paper with quick, decisive strokes. She hadn't drawn in months, But today something had compelled her to bring her old sketchbook to work. Her fingers remembered the movements, creating silhouettes and patterns almost of their own accord. From his position, Jun-suk could see the intensity in her expression as she worked. Her drawings showed a natural talent for capturing movement and form, even in quick sketches. He recognized the same innovative spirit he'd seen in her magazine features, though now it seemed tempered by something heavier. Experience, perhaps, or pain. After 30 minutes of observation, Jun-suk approached her table. Hae-jin looked up, startled by the shadow falling across her sketchbook. She immediately closed it, her defensive posture revealing her discomfort with being watched. "Ms. Hae-jin," Jun-suk said, maintaining a professional distance. "I'm Jun-suk, CEO of Modern Edge Fashion Group. I've seen your previous work, and I'd like to discuss a potential project with you." Hae-jin's expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. She hadn't heard that company name in months, not since she'd withdrawn from the fashion world. "I don't design anymore," she replied, her voice firm but quiet. "Perhaps you'd be willing to make an exception," Jun-suk pressed, sliding his business card across the table. "We're launching a new line that could benefit from your perspective on traditional modern fusion." The tension in the air was palpable. Hae-jin stared at the business card, her fingers tracing the embossed letters. Every instinct told her to decline, to stay in the safe routine she'd built for herself. But something in Jun-suk's direct approach intrigued her. After a long moment, she agreed to attend a meeting, though her hesitation was evident in every word. They set the appointment for the following week at the Modern Edge headquarters. When Hae-jin arrived at the towering office building, her confidence wavered. The modern architecture and sleek interior design reminded her of the world she'd left behind. Security directed her to the executive floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seoul. The conference room intimidated her with its minimalist design and expensive furniture. Jun-suk had assembled a small team of designers and executives, all watching her with curious expressions. As she began to present her old portfolio, her hands trembled slightly. Jun-suk noticed her nervousness, but saw beyond it to the passion that emerged when she spoke about her designs. He interrupted the other executives' technical questions to ask about her vision, her inspiration, the stories behind each piece.
Gradually, halvfidestensejon iser.
She found herself explaining her philosophy about fashion as a bridge between generations, her desire to preserve traditional elements while embracing modern aesthetics. The tremor in her hands subsided as she sketched quick examples on the conference room's whiteboard. "This is exactly what we need," Jun-suk announced, cutting through a discussion about market demographics. "Fresh perspective, authentic vision, de EP understanding of both traditional and contemporary elements." The other executives exchanged glances, some skeptical, others intrigued. Hae-jin felt their evaluation but found herself more concerned with Jun-suk's confident assertion of her abilities. It had been so long since anyone had shown such faith in her talent. As the meeting concluded, Jun-suk walked Hae-jin to the elevator. "Think about it," he said, his tone serious but encouraging. "You have something unique to offer. Don't let past experiences define your future." Hae-jin rode the elevator down in silence, her mind racing. The sketchbook in her bag seemed heavier now, filled with possibilities she thought were forever close to her. The question wasn't just about accepting a job offer. It was about whether she was ready to step back into a world that held both promise and pain. The collaboration between Hae-jin and Jun-suk began tentatively, with early morning meetings in the Modern Edge conference room. What started as formal presentations evolved into animated discussions that often ran well into the evening. Hae-jin found herself spreading sketches across the table while Jun-suk shared market insights and brand vision. Their project focused on creating a line that would bridge the gap between traditional Korean fashion elements and contemporary street style. Hae-jin's designs incorporated subtle nods to hanbok silhouettes while maintaining modern wearability. Jun-suk's business acumen helped shape these artistic visions into marketable pieces. "The younger generation wants to connect with their heritage," Jun-suk explained during one of their sessions, but in a way that fits their daily lives. He pointed to one of Hae-jin's sketches, a modern blazer with traditional Korean closure details. This is exactly the kind of peace that speaks to them. As they worked together, Haejin noticed how Jun-suk's approach to fashion aligned with her own philosophy about female empowerment. He insisted on comfortable, practical designs that didn't sacrifice elegance. His respect for her creative input gradually helped rebuild her confidence. However, beneath the surface of their productive partnership, Haejin struggled with recurring waves of self-doubt. Each successful design meeting was followed by nights of questioning her decisions. The memory of her previous life's collapse haunted her, making her second-guess every choice. During one late-night session, as they reviewed fabric samples, Haejin's hands stopped moving across the swatches. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm making a mistake," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "Getting involved in all this again." Jun-suk set down his coffee cup, studying her with understanding. "Fear of failure doesn't make you weak," he said. "It makes you human. But don't let it stop you from creating something meaningful." Their moment of vulnerability was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Soo-jin. She walked into the conference room unannounced, her presence creating an immediate tension. Though identical to Haejin in appearance, her demeanor was completely different, more assertive, more polished. "I heard about the project," Soo-jin said, her eyes moving between Haejin and Jun-suk. "I thought it was time we talked, Yoni." The air in the room grew thick with unspoken words. Jun-suk watched as Haejin's posture stiffened, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. The sisters hadn't spoken since the wedding, and now here they were, face to face in the last place Haejin expected. "This isn't the time or place," Haejin said, her voice controlled but strained. She began gathering her sketches, her movements quick and defensive. Soo-jin stepped forward. "You can't avoid me forever. We need to discuss this, all of it. The wedding, Min-ho, our family." Jun-suk attempted to mediate, suggesting they move the conversation to a more private setting, but the tension had already escalated. The mention of Min-ho's nom. He had shattered the productive atmosphere they'd built over weeks. "There's nothing to discuss," Haejin said, her voice sharper now. "You made your choices. Both of you did." She stood up, clutching her portfolio to her chest like a shield. Soo-jin's expression softened slightly. "I came here because I miss my sister. Because this project could be a chance for us to... To what?"
Haedfin interrupter.
"To pretend everything's normal? That you didn't marry my husband?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jun-suk stood between the sisters, witnessing the pain and complexity of their relationship. He could see how this unexpected confrontation threatened to derail not just the project, but also Haejin's fragile recovery. As Haejin moved to leave, Soo-jin called after her. "We can't keep living like this. We're family." Those words stopped Haejin at the door. Without turning around, she replied, "Family doesn't do what you did." Then she was gone, leaving behind a heavy silence and scattered fabric samples. A week after the confrontation at Modern Edge, Haejin found herself face-to-face with Soo-jin again, this time at their parents' house. Their mother had orchestrated the meeting, concerned about the growing rift between her daughters. "You had no right to come to my workplace," Haejin said, standing in their childhood bedroom where photos of them together still lined the walls. "You can't just show up and expect everything to be fine." Soo-jin sat on the edge of her old bed, fingers twisting the hem of her designer dress. "I know what we did was wrong, but Min-ho and I..." "Don't." Haejin cut her off sharply. "Don't try to justify it. You were my sister, my twin, the one person who is supposed to understand me completely, and you betrayed me in the worst possible way." The argument escalated quickly, years of unspoken feelings bursting forth. Soo-jin accused Haejin of always being the perfect daughter, the talented one, while Haejin countered with accusations of jealousy and betrayal. Their voices carried through the house, bringing their mother to tears in the kitchen below. "You think you were the only one suffering?" Soo-jin shouted. "I watched you live the life I wanted, with the man I loved first." The revelation hit Haejin like a physical blow. "What did you say?" "Min-ho and I dated in college, before he met you. I never told you because you seemed so happy when you started seeing him." I stepped aside then, but I couldn't do it forever. Hae-jin left the house in a daze, ignoring her mother's pleas to stay. She drove aimlessly through Seoul's streets, eventually finding herself at Modern Edge's building. Jun-suk was still in his office, working late as usual. He listened as she recounted the fight, his expression remaining neutral but supportive. When she finished, he offered a perspective she hadn't considered. Sometimes the people closest to us cause the deepest wounds because they know exactly where to strike, he said. But they're also the ones who know us well enough to help us heal. Hae-jin shook her head, standing to pace the office. I need to handle this alone. I can't keep dragging other people into my family drama. She withdrew from both Jun-suk and the project, missing meetings and ignoring calls. Instead, she found herself drawn to her old design studio, a small space she'd rented years ago when her career was just beginning. The studio remained unchanged, dust covering her old drafting table and mannequins. Sketches from her first collection still hung on the walls, dreams frozen in time. She spent hours there, surrounded by the remnants of her former life, trying to reconcile her past with her present. In the quiet of the studio, Hae-jin began to draw again, but this time her designs were different. They carried an edge of pain, a beauty born from betrayal. Each sketch became a form of therapy, helping her process the complicated emotions she'd been suppressing. The solitude gave her space to think about Soo-jin's revelation. The knowledge that her sister had loved Minho first didn't excuse their actions, but it added a layer of complexity to the betrayal that Hae-jin hadn't been ready to face until now. The Seoul Fashion Week venue buzzed with energy as designers, buyers, and media representatives gathered for the season's showcase. Hae-jin stood at the back of the crowd, having received an invitation from one of her old industry contacts. She hadn't planned to attend, but something drew her there. During the presentation of upcoming designers, Hae-jin found herself sketching in her notebook, inspired by the energy of the show. A woman sitting next to her noticed the drawings, Lee Min-ah, a prominent fashion editor known for launching new talent. These are exceptional, Min-ah said, studying Hae-jin's sketches. The way you blend traditional elements with streetwear is exactly what the market needs right now. Before Hae-jin could respond, Min-ah handed her a business card. My magazine is launching a special collection with emerging designers. We'd like to feature your work. The offer stunned Hae-jin. It represented everything she'd walked away from months ago, but now it felt different. Her time alone in the studio had changed her perspective on design and her own capabilities. After the show, she found herself calling Jun-suk. Despite her recent withdrawal, he answered on the first ring. I got an offer from Style Korea magazine, she said, standing outside the venue. They want to collaborate on a collection. That's incredible, Jun-suk replied, his voice warm with genuine enthusiasm. We should celebrate. They met at a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. Jun-suk had ordered champagne, and as they discussed the opportunity, Hae-jin noticed how naturally they fell back into their easy rapport. You deserve this, he said, watching her eyes light up as she described her vision for the collection. You've always had the talent. Now you have the strength to match it. The moment shifted as their eyes met across the table. The city lights reflected in the window behind them, creating an intimate atmosphere. Jun-suk leaned forward slightly, and Hae-jin felt her heart rate quicken. But the memory of her failed marriage crashed over her like a cold wave. She pulled back abruptly, nearly knocking over her glass. I should go, she said, gathering her things. This isn't... I can't. Hae-jin, Jun-suk called after her, but she was already heading for the door. In her apartment that night, Hae-jin paced restlessly. The evening had stirred up feelings she'd been carefully avoiding. Jun-suk had become more than just a business partner. He'd become someone she looked forward to seeing, someone who understood her without words. The realization terrified her. Her last relationship had ended with the ultimate betrayal, and the thought of risking her heart again seemed foolish. Moreover, Jun-suk was technically her business partner, and mixing personal feelings with professional relationships had proved disastrous before. She picked up her phone several times to call him and apologize for running out, but each time she set it down again. The walls she'd built to protect herself were strong, but for the first time since her divorce, she found herself wanting to break them down. Jun-suk found Hae-jin in her old studio the next day. She sat at her drafting table, surrounded by sketches for the Style Korea collection. "We need to talk about last night," he said, closing the door behind him. Instead of his usual polished business attire, he wore casual clothes, making him seem more approachable. "There's nothing to talk about," Hae-jin replied, keeping her eyes on her work. Jun-suk pulled up a chair, sitting close enough to see her designs but far enough to give her space. "I was married once," he said suddenly. The unexpected confession made Hae-jin look up. "She left me for my business part."
Yeah.
They took half the company with them. His revelation hung in the air between them. "Why are you telling me this?" Hae-jin asked quietly. "Because I understand what it's like to lose everything you thought was certain," he replied. "And I understand why you ran last night. But hiding from every possibility of happiness isn't the answer." Before Hae-jin could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from Minna. The magazine wanted to showcase her designs at their annual gala event, scheduled for the following week. The timing felt both perfect and terrifying. "Come with me," Jun-suk said, reading the message over her shoulder. "Not as business partners, just as us." After a long moment, Hae-jin nodded. The week leading up to the gala passed in a blur of preparations. She threw herself into finalizing her designs, using the work to distract herself from thoughts of Jun-suk and what their relationship was becoming. The night of the gala arrived. Hae-jin wore one of her own designs, a modern hanbok-inspired evening dress that blended traditional elements with contemporary styling. When Jun-suk picked her up, his expression of admiration made her blush. The event space was transformed into a showcase of Korean fashion innovation. Hae-jin's collection held a prominent position, her designs drawing attention from industry leaders. She found herself explaining her vision repeatedly, gaining confidence with each conversation. Then she saw Soo-jin enter the venue. Her sister wore a designer gown, her presence commanding attention as always. Their eyes met across the room, and for a moment, Hae-jin felt her old insecurities rushing back. Jun-suk noticed the change in her demeanor. "Remember why you're here," he said softly. "This is your moment. Don't let anything diminish that." His words steadied her, but the night had suddenly become more complicated. Soo-jin's presence threatened to overshadow everything Hae-jin had accomplished, bringing the weight of their unresolved conflict back to the surface. The tension at the gala was palpable as Soo-jin approached her sister. Instead of the confrontation everyone expected, Soo-jin spoke quietly. "Can we talk? Somewhere private." Hae-jin hesitated, then led them to a quiet balcony overlooking Seoul's nightscape. For a moment, both sisters stood in silence, their identical profiles reflected in the glass doors behind them. "Your designs are beautiful," Soo-jin began. "They remind me of when we used to sketch together as kids. Remember how we'd stay up all night planning our fashion empire? That was before you took everything from me," Hae-jin replied, but her voice lacked its usual anger. Soo-jin turned to face her sister fully. "I've been in therapy," she admitted, "trying to understand why I did what I did. It wasn't just about Min-ho. It was about always feeling like your shadow, even though we're twins." "My shadow?" Hae-jin asked incredulously. "You were always the confident one, the one who could walk into any room and own it." "Because I had to be," Soo-jin's voice cracked. "You had the talent, the vision. I was just the other twin. When Min-ho chose you, it confirmed everything I feared about myself." From his position near the door, Jun-suk watched the sisters' interaction carefully, ready to intervene if needed. But he saw something shifting in their body language, a softening of the rigid barriers they'd built between them. "What happened with Min-ho?" Soo-jin continued. "It was wrong. Unforgivably wrong. But seeing you tonight, seeing what you've created on your own, I realize I didn't just betray you. I betrayed myself by letting jealousy destroy our relationship." Hae-jin felt tears forming, but held them back. "I trusted you both completely. Do you know what that did to me?" "I do now," Soo-jin whispered. "And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to be sisters again, to support each other like we used to. The honesty in Sujin's voice struck something in Haejin. For the first time since the betrayal, she saw her sister not as the woman who stole her husband, but as someone who had been fighting her own battles. After a long moment, Haejin spoke. I can't forget what happened, but maybe we can try to move forward. Their conversation was interrupted by Minna, announcing it was time for Haejin's collection presentation. To everyone's surprise, Sujin offered to help coordinate the models, drawing on her experience in event planning. Watching the sisters work together, Jun-suk saw a weight lift from Haejin's shoulders. The presentation was a success, with the sisters' combined efforts creating a seamless show that highlighted the strength of Haejin's designs. The launch of Haejin's collection transformed her standing in Seoul's fashion industry. Fashion blogs buzzed with praise for her innovative fusion of traditional and modern elements. Orders flooded in from boutiques across Asia, and her Instagram followers multiplied overnight. In her studio, now properly renovated and staffed, Haejin worked alongside a small team of designers. Her experience with betrayal had shaped her leadership style. She fostered an environment of open communication and mutual respect, ensuring every team member felt valued. Jun-suk visited regularly, though no longer just for business reasons. Their relationship had evolved naturally, built on a foundation of mutual understanding and shared experiences. During late nights at the studio, they talk about everything from design concepts to their deepest fears. I never thought I'd feel this way again, Haejin admitted one evening as they sat surrounded by fabric swatches and design sketches. Safe. Happy. Jun-suk took her hand, his touch gentle but assured. Sometimes the worst things in our lives lead us to the best ones. Their romantic relationship became public knowledge at a fashion industry event where they arrived together, no longer hiding their connection. The media attention was immediate, but Haejin handled it with newfound confidence. Her story resonated particularly with women who had faced similar betrayals. Letters and messages poured in from those who found inspiration in her journey from heartbreak to success. During a particularly memorable interview, Haejin spoke candidly about her experience. Pain can either break you or transform you, she said. I chose to transform it into something beautiful. The interview went viral, sparking discussions about resilience and reinvention. Women's groups invited her to speak at their events, and her designs became symbols of female empowerment. Each piece in her collection told a story of recovery and renewal. Sujin, surprisingly, became one of her biggest supporters. The sisters' reconciliation added another layer to Haejin's narrative of forgiveness and growth. They even collaborated on a special collection, their different perspectives creating something unique. The revelation came during a casual dinner with Ji-won, Haejin's longtime friend from design school. Over wine and Korean barbecue, Ji-won shifted uncomfortably before speaking. There's something you should know about Jun-suk, she said, avoiding eye contact. I did some research after seeing you together. His ex-wife didn't just leave with his business partner. There's more to the story. Haejin set down her chopsticks, her appetite vanishing. What do you mean? His company back then, it failed because he got too close to his employees. There were rumors about inappropriate relationships, misused company funds. Some say he drove them away with his obsessive behavior. The information hit Haejin like a physical blow. She remembered how Jun-suk had helped her, invested in her career, supported her recovery. Had it all been part of a pattern? That night, she confronted him in his office. Tell me about your old company, she demanded without preamble. The real story. Jun-suk's expression tightened. He stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the city lights. Who told you? Does it matter? I need to hear it from you. After a long pause, he spoke. I trusted the wrong people. Got too involved in their lives, their problems. When my wife and partner left, they spread stories to protect themselves. Yes, I was obsessive about the company, about success. But I never crossed the lines they claimed I did. And now, with me, with my company. Haejin's voice trembled slightly. Is this just another pattern? No, he replied firmly. But I understand why you'd think that. I kept this from you because I was afraid you'd see me differently, afraid of losing what we have. The silence between them grew heavy with unspoken fears and doubts. Jun-suk moved toward her, but Hae-jin stepped back. I need time, she said. Space to think. Hae-jin, please just give me time. She left his office, tears blurring her vision. In the following days, Jun-suk respected her request for space, though she could see him struggling with the distance. He withdrew from their joint projects, sending representatives to meetings instead. The separation affected both their personal and professional lives. Hae-jin found herself second-guessing decisions, wondering if her success was truly her own or orchestrated by Jun-suk's influence. During a major Fashion Week event, Hae-jin discovered something unexpected while reviewing competitor profiles. Modern Edge wasn't just investing in her brand. They were funding several small, women-led fashion companies across Asia. Each investment was structured to maintain the designer's creative independence while providing necessary business support. Her investigation led her to a small office in the Modern Edge building she'd never noticed before. There, a team worked on what they called the Phoenix Project, an initiative to identify and support designers who had faced personal or professional setbacks. Mr. Park started this program 3 years ago, an employee explained. He believes talent shouldn't be lost because of life setbacks. But he insists on keeping his involvement minimal, says it's about the designers, not him. Hae-jin found herself in front of Seoul Fashion Institute, where a competition showcase was underway. Inside, she spotted Jun-suk sitting quietly in the back, watching young designers present their work. He wasn't there as a CEO or investor, just as an observer. Their eyes met across the auditorium. Instead of approaching her, he stayed in his seat, respecting the boundaries she'd set. But something in his expression, a mixture of resignation and unwavering support, made her pause. During the event's intermission, Hae-jin took the stage unexpectedly. Success in fashion isn't just about talent, she began. It's about having the courage to start again when everything falls apart. Sometimes we need someone to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. She announced her decision to merge her brand with Modern Edge, but with a twist. She would lead a new division focused on designer rehabilitation and support. The audience, including industry veterans who knew her story, responded with immediate approval. Jun-suk remained in his seat, visibly moved but still maintaining his distance. It was Hae-jin who approached him. You never told me about the Phoenix Project, she said. It wasn't about me, he replied simply. No, she agreed. It was about healing, just like us. Their reconciliation became a partnership in every sense, personal and professional. The fashion industry watched as they transformed Modern Edge into more than just a company. It became a platform for second chances, for transformation, for turning pain into purpose. Soo-jin joined their initiative, using her event planning skills to showcase emerging designers. The sisters' relationship, once shattered by betrayal, had evolved into something stronger, a partnership. Built on understanding and forgiveness. In their first joint interview, when asked about their unusual journey, Hae-jin smiled. Sometimes love isn't about finding the perfect person, she said, glancing at Jun-suk. It's about finding someone who understands that we're all imperfect and chooses to build something beautiful anyway. The story of Hae-jin and Jun-suk became more than just a romance. It became a testament to the power of second chances, not just in love, but in life. Their success proved that sometimes the deepest wounds can lead to the most profound healing, and that true strength lies not in avoiding pain, but in transforming it into something meaningful.